Welcome and thank you for standing by. Your lines will be in a listen-only mode for today's presentation until the question and answer session. If at that time you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. The call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Once again, please continue to stand by. Your conference will begin momentarily.
Thank you. Good afternoon from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Steve Seislaw from the Office of Communications. Thank you for joining us for today's pre-launch news conference for the next SpaceX cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. This is part of NASA's Commercial Resupply Program. Liftoff of the uncrewed SpaceX Dragon spacecraft atop the company's Falcon 9 rocket will carry supplies, hardware, and science investigations to the International Space Station. It's currently targeted for no earlier than Thursday, November 9th at 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time. Teams from NASA and SpaceX just completed the Launch Readiness review, and senior representatives are here to talk with us more about the milestone today. With us today are Dana Weigel, Deputy Program Manager of the International Space Station Program, Meghan Everett, Deputy Chief Scientist of the International Space Station Program Research Office, Benji Reed, Senior Director for Human Spaceflight Programs at SpaceX, Melody Lovin, Launch Weather Officer at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's 45th Weather Squadron. Our speakers will each provide opening remarks, and then we'll move to questions from reporters on the phone. To enter that question queue, please use star 1. And to start, we'll hear from Dana Weigel, Deputy Program Manager.
Thank you, Steve. Let's see, thank you all for tuning in. As Steve mentioned, we just finished our Launch Readiness review. It was a great review. SpaceX is still working through a couple of final items, and we're looking forward to the successful launch and arrival of SpaceX 29 to the space station. We've got the primary launch date set up for Thursday, November 9th at 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time from Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. The launch did move a bit when the team identified a thruster valve oxidizer leak that was picked up when SpaceX did the initial propellant load on the vehicle. SpaceX made the decision to replace the thruster, and Benji can share a few more details with you about the decision. The docking itself is targeted for about 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, November 11th. Jasmine Mobelli and Laura O'Hara will be monitoring the docking for us. The Dragon will remain on board for about a month, undocking in mid to early December to return research and investigations back to Earth. The vehicle will be carrying about 6,500 pounds of science, research, crew supplies, and hardware. Meghan will talk in a little more detail about the research, but just to give you a few of the highlights for our research campaign, We've got an investigation that will take a better look into the Earth's atmospheric gravity waves, an investigation that aims to test high data rate laser communications from the space station down to Earth. We've got a European Space Agency investigation looking into water filtration using proteins that are found in nature for onboard water recycling and recovery. And we'll also have an investigation that looks into the effects of spaceflight on plant defense responses. A couple of the hardware highlights that we're flying include a new upgraded technology for spacecraft air monitoring that will improve our ability to monitor the air quality on board space station. We've also got a spare cycle ergometer that we're sending up. This is a new system that we've recently developed and installed. Some of the special food we're sending up on Dragon includes a fresh food kit that'll have oranges, apples, cherry tomatoes, carrots, and a few other items. We've got 2 specialty cheese kits that have a selection of different cheeses. And because we're in the holiday season, we've got some fun holiday treats for the crew, like chocolate, pumpkin spice cappuccino, rice cakes, turkey, duck, quail, seafood, cranberry sauce, and mochi. We've also got some pizza kits, which are a favorite for our crew, some hummus, salsa, and olives. Let's see, in other station news, we did recently complete 2 spacewalks, the first of which was a Russian spacewalk completed on October 25th. And then on November 1st, Laurel and Jasmine did a NASA spacewalk to replace an aging, degrading trundle-bearing assembly on our port truss that was affecting the rotation of our solar arrays. That solar array is rotating very nicely now following the upgrade. We had also planned on that EVA to remove a failed communications box, but the trundle-bearing replacement took a bit longer than expected, and so we'll pick up that box removal on a future spacewalk. Looking ahead, we've got a big milestone coming up on November 20th. That marks the 25th anniversary of the launch of the first element of the space station. That was the Zarya module, which was funded by NASA, but built and launched from Russia. It's incredible looking back over the past 25 years and seeing how space station has grown and how the international partnerships have flourished and how much research we've accomplished on the vehicle. As of today, 273 people from 21 countries have visited the International Space Station, which is pretty impressive. Then right around the corner from that, December 1st, we've got a Progress vehicle that'll launch and dock. And then again, in early to mid-December, we've got the undock of SpaceX 29 and the unberth of the Northrop Grumman 19 vehicle. So that's the news for on board. Just one other tidbit for space station news. We do have a new upgrade to our Spot the Station smartphone application. We have a lot of new interactive information and a new feature that lets you locate station in the sky and capture and share your sighting pictures and videos. So feel free to check out our new upgraded application. And with that, I'll hand it off to Meghan.
Thank you, Dana. So from the ISS Research Office, we are very excited about the SpaceX 29 launch because it is a high science mission. We are flying over 1,500 kilograms of science mass, and this includes 50 investigations from NASA, our international partners, and national laboratories. And it includes areas such as human research, technology demonstrations, fundamental science, and Earth observation. I don't get to highlight all of the research we're doing, so I'm just going to pick a few here that really highlight NASA's goals of supporting novel research that improves Earth-based capabilities and benefits to human health through our space-based innovations, and research that improves science capabilities and human presence in space on ISS and for our future commercial and exploration programs. The first 2 investigations I'm going to cover will be on the outside of the space station, and Dana mentioned these earlier. The first one is Illuma-T, and this is using optical communication to use lower power and smaller hardware for sending data packages back from the space station to Earth that are even larger and faster than our capabilities today. This optical communication could hugely benefit the research that we are already doing on the space station by allowing our scientists to see the data faster, turn results around faster, and even help our medical community by sending down medical packets of data. So this investigation will first start off as a 6-month technology demonstration, and if it works well, we hope to keep it as a sustaining platform on space station. The next one is AWE, or the Atmospheric Waves Experiment. And this experiment is a brand new way to look at gravity waves and how they impact space weather. So gravity waves, you can think of them as little pockets of energy that start off very small, where they start in lower atmospheres, and they grow as they get into higher atmospheres. And here at the higher atmospheres, because they're bigger, we can measure them from the space station. So we are hoping that by measuring these atmospheric or these gravity waves, we can get a better idea of space weather, which could impact climate change or how winds in space affect our satellites. So this will be a 2-year technology demonstration where we're really looking to see what kind of new data this AWE payload will show us. The next few investigations, I'm going to move you from outside the space station to inside the space station. And the first one is called Aquamembrane 3. And this looks at aquaporin proteins, which are found in living cells naturally, and how well they can filter water. So we all know that water filtration and clean water is a basic human need and really important on Earth as well as in space. So we do have ways that we can filter water already that work very well, but this allows us to provide another platform to do this that might be even lower power and lower technology and a little bit easier of a mechanism to employ. So this could be really useful in extreme environments such as military locations, after a natural disaster, and in spaceflight. The next investigations is Rodent Research 20, looking at female reproductive health. And here we're seeking to better understand the combined effects of spaceflight, nutrition, and environmental stressors on reproductive health and bone health. And there was some previous research that suggested there were changes in hormone receptors and endocrine function that negatively impacted female reproductive health. So we're hoping the results of this study can be used to inform female astronaut health during long-duration spaceflight and even female reproductive health here on Earth. And finally, the last study I'm going to talk about is called Gaucho Lung. And this study looks at how fluid is transported through gel-coated tubes. And so we're using these gel-coated tubes to mimic the respiratory tract. And in order to treat different respiratory diseases, we deliver these drugs in these small fluid packages called liquid plugs. And these work really, really well in infants with respiratory distress syndrome, but they do not work very well in adults. And understanding why they don't work very well requires understanding wicking forces, the characteristics of the mucus, and even the effects of gravity. So by doing this study in microgravity and on the space station, we can look at the different effects of capillary forces and the mucus without the additional factors of gravity. So the results of this study could greatly improve our ability to treat respiratory diseases here on Earth. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Benji. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Thank you all. It's an honor to be here as always. First of all, I just want to comment on the fact that the ISS app sounds great, and I'm going to put it on my phone because I'm always looking for the station when I'm looking up at the sky at night. So that's awesome. Thank you, Dana. Also, I want to note that we just completed our 80th launch of the year for Falcon on Tuesday. And last Friday, we completed our first 18th launch and landing of a Falcon 9 booster. And of note, that was the same booster that Bob and Doug flew on to the space station in May of 2020. That's exciting all by itself, but it's worth highlighting here because it really underscores the value of the public-private partnership, of the NASA SpaceX partnership, because that's really what helped us create jointly Dragon and Falcon, and is allowing us, in an industry to go to whole different places, and allowing us as a nation to really have completely recaptured the launch market. So thank you to NASA for this ongoing partnership. And along those same lines, we're honored to launch our 29th cargo resupply mission to ISS. It's awesome to hear about all of the great science, and I know that Meghan only had a chance to talk about a little bit of it, but there's so much good work that goes on up there. We've completed our launch readiness review, and we're now in final preparation to launch both Dragon and Falcon, to launch on Falcon to launch Dragon to the space station. As noted, we decided last week to shift the launch from Sunday, November 5th to this Thursday, November 9th. We often say that we will only launch when we're ready, and we really mean that, right? Whether we're carrying crew or cargo or any other customer payloads, we want to make sure that we do it safely and reliably, and that our customers, meet the objectives. And of course, in this case, we want to make sure we get all that cargo and good science and awesome holiday food up to the space station in a timely and safe manner. The reason we decided to delay was due to an NTO valve leak that we'd identified. And as I think most folks may be aware, Dragon uses a hypergol propellant system when it's in space, and that's composed of MMH and NTO. NTO is nitrogen tetroxide, and it's basically oxidizer that's used as part of the propellant system. We have a ton of valves, lots of valves and lots of tubes and tanks and whatnot that make a spaceship work and make Dragon work. During our entire process, whether we're building a new capsule or going through refurbishment, we are constantly inspecting, checking out, testing all of the valves and that plumbing system, if you will, through the entire capsule. And this is certainly true whenever we're refurbishing a vehicle for additional flights. In this case, as we were proceeding through our refurbishment and prep for flight, we had identified a leak in the quad 2 in one of the valves. And, out of an abundance of caution, we decided that we should replace that entire valve and basically do what you call as a repair, replace, and R&R on that system. It really was the best path forward, and once we did that, we were able to proceed with our propellant load on the system. After we finished the propellant load, and part of the process of going through the propellant load, we identified, again, a little bit of a trace amount of NTO vapor in the air around the new thruster. This isn't entirely uncommon, but again, we paused to make sure we looked closely at what that vapor, the amount of vapor, and identified, whether or not that would be of concern. Of note, we saw a substantial reduction in that NTO vapor once we had the system up to full closeout pressure, which also is to be expected. Given that, we had confirmed the system was healthy and we could proceed into final launch preparations. All of this work is necessary for ensuring a safe launch and our delivery of cargo. I think it's important that we talk a little bit about timing and information and how we share information around events like this. Again, part of spaceflight is, or a key part of spaceflight, I should say, is flying, and so we always work very hard to stick to our flight launch dates, our planned manifest. And when I say we, that's a joint effort between us and our customers, and always with NASA. It's important for the International Space Station to maintain its manifest of all of the activities going on and all of the vehicles that come and go. It's important for us with our busy manifest, and really it's part of safety and reliability. When everybody can plan to the same schedule, they can help ensure that things are going to happen the way they expected. So it's important to hold to your launch dates. But like I said earlier, we will only fly when ready. And what that means is that when we just find something could be off, we do two things. We make sure that we're really okay, or we do whatever it takes to get us into an okay state. But we don't give up on that launch date until we know that we have to. And so we also don't, necessarily come out and say, hey, we're going to move the launch date when we didn't need to. We like to make sure that we know for sure that we understand the problem. We've bounded the solution. We know that the solution is going to work on a time scale we expect to close. And then if that means moving the launch date, we move that, and we work that jointly, of course, with NASA, and we let people know what's going on. With that, I can say happily that we are ready to fly. We're going to be flying this Thursday evening, and it's exciting that the booster will be coming back to our landing zone 1 down at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Again, thank you all for always tuning into these briefings, and a real big thank you to everybody who works these missions at NASA, at SpaceX, and across all of our agencies and the public. We appreciate the trust and the collaboration, and always an extra thank you to the teams at the 45th Space Wing. And with that, I will pass it on to Melody to talk about the weather.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Weather is always kind of a sticking point with some of these launches, but I have the great fortune of being able to let you know that the weather looks excellent for the initial launch window and also the backup launch window if we need to use it on Friday. Basically, if you go outside, if you have the pleasure of being here on the Space Coast today and go outside, you'll notice very sunny skies and a few low top clouds there. But in general, the weather tomorrow will be largely similar to what we see today. So that's all due to high pressure across the area. That high pressure currently centered right over the Florida Peninsula right now is going to slide a little bit eastward and will be positioned off our Atlantic waters for the next 2 days or so. So that high pressure ridge access will keep basically a mostly dry conditions and very low-topped clouds across our region. Those clouds, because they're low-top, they're not of any kind of a weather concern for our launch weather rules. So because of that, I'm forecasting a probability of weather violation of only 5%, which is actually 95% go for the initial launch window tomorrow evening. And then the backup launch window, just a 10% probability of violation, which translates to a 90% go if we need to use that. Temperatures should be in the low 70s with the winds generally out of the east-southeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's all I have, so go ahead and pass it back to Steve.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to move into the question and answers. As a reminder, please use *1 to enter into the question queue. And when called upon, please state who you are addressing your question to. And try to limit it to one question at a time, please, so we can get through our folks. And the first question is from Kristen Fisher at CNN. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hi, this question is for Benji, and I apologize for being a bit off topic, but just wondering if you could give us any kind of update or guidance surrounding the next or the second flight test for Starship, which everybody kind of has their eyes on. Any guidance greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for the question. It's super exciting, and as we often say, what a cool time to be working in the industry in space flight and aerospace, to have all of these different things going on. Of course, I want to stay focused on CRS-29 since that's our topic, and it's always most important is the next launch up. But I will let you know that we're converging well. We're working with the agencies to finish out the regulatory needs, licensing, to be ready to go. So we're excited for hopefully coming up mid-November here, so very soon.
Thank you. And Bill Harwood at CBS, you're next. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, thank you very much. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, be at 5x5.
Okay, thank you. This is for Benji. We all enjoyed watching the access arm get put up on pad 40. Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to use 40 and 39A in terms of Axe 3, and of course the moonshot going off 39A, how is Axe 3 going off 40, I guess is what I'm asking. Or anything you can tell me about how that's going to get scheduled through with the new pad. Thanks.
Hey, Bill. Great question. It does look really great. So you had a chance to get out there and take a look at the access arm out there on 40. I think it looks awesome. As we talked at a previous briefing, we are creating that capability off of pad 40 to be able to fly Dragons, cargo or human space flight missions, crewed missions off of that pad. And I think it's important to know that really that serves two functions. One is it's kind of a relief valve for a heavy manifest, and including Falcon Heavies, no pun intended. But when we fly a lot of things off 39A that are not Dragons, sometimes it's better for our manifest and our customers' needs to be able to have another place to fly Dragon. So that's one reason. Another big reason is to ensure that we always have access to space for key customers like NASA and for the International Space Station. And so we'll be able to have that in case for whatever reason 39A was down for an extended period of time. We'd want to be able to use that location, and that ensures continual access to space for ISS and other customers. When it comes to upcoming manifest, we're working through that and taking a look at where we're going to go with things. And the good news is with 40 coming online, we have more options.
Thank you. Let's go next to Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Go ahead, Marcia.
Yes, hi. 2 questions. Did I hear that a rodent habitat was going up on this one? And if so, how many mice or rats or other live animals may be flying on this supply run? And also, for Dana, the tool bag that floated away a week ago during the spacewalk, I'm wondering what was inside, or spares having to be, spares going up, replacements on this flight, and if you could tell me how did it actually come loose? Thanks.
Let's see, why don't I take the tool bag question, and then I'll hand it to Megan to answer your question about the rodents. The type of bag that floated away, it's called a crew lock bag. We tend to carry ancillary tools in there. This particular bag had some tethers and things like tool sockets. They're kind of like common household sockets. So the good news is these are fairly common items. It's unfortunate we lost them, but not a huge impact. We do have a replacement crew lock bag with some tools that we're sending back up. In terms of how it happened, that's hard to say. We'll have to see if the crew has any insight. I don't know if we had a tether hook issue or if there was another problem with securing that bag, so we're not quite sure yet. And I will hand it to Megan for the rodents.
All right. Thank you, Dana. So yes, you did hear correctly. We are flying rodents on this mission. We will be flying 40 rodents up on SpaceX 29, and we will be returning 20 mice or 20 rodents, and then we will be keeping another 20 up there for a few days longer to do some additional research.
Thank you. For Dana, I'm sorry. Did you say replacements are going up on the very next, SpaceX flight tomorrow, hopefully? And for all this, is there any? Are you seeing the bag floating around out there? I think it's been sighted by the crew. It's totally safe. No risk of coming back and hitting anything.
Yeah, the replacement bag and some of the tethers and sockets, that is, you're correct, that's on SpaceX 29, so that's on the vehicle going up Thursday. The bag actually had a really, really small rate when it separated for ISS, so we could see it for quite a while. I'd have to check. I haven't had a recent update, but it was true that we could see it kind of just slowly, hanging out there near us for quite a while. So not a specific risk or concern. It was moving very slowly.
Thank you. And Jackie Waddles, you're next. Go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, thanks so much, everyone. Quick question for Dana. I wanted to check in if you had any information about the coolant leak and the status of the investigation by Roscosmos and by NASA, just if you had any updates on root cause of that. And given all the coolant leaks we've seen, this year and the end of last year, is there like a broader plan to address these if they do all have a similar root cause? Thanks so much.
Sure. So I put the coolant leaks in 2 different categories. There was what we saw with the progress in the Soyuz, and then there was the more recent coolant leak with the MLM. The Russians are still investigating the cause of the MLM. So let me actually address Soyuz in progress first. They finished their investigation from the signature of the leak. It was a rapid kind of loss of coolant. It wasn't something that slowly increased over time. And from all of the imagery, they've concluded that highest likelihood was micrometeoroid, and that area there on the radiator panel is an area that can be struck by debris. You'd have to ask Roscosmos what their intentions are for the future. They have had discussions about what they can do to be more robust in those areas, but I don't have any current information on that. The MLM was a little different. It was on a bend of one of the supplemental radiator on the outside of the MLM. We don't think there's any relationship specifically between the coolant leak on the MLM and Soyuz or Progress, though the Russians have not ruled out micrometeoroid, but they are still investigating and looking at any number of causal factors. On their EVA on October 25th, when they went out, they did have the crew go to the area just to try to get a little more imagery and visual inspections, and they had the crew operate a valve to isolate that radiator. That helps add additional protection for the other loop on the MLM that is connected up to that radiator. But at this point in time, they've still got an internal investigation ongoing, and we haven't heard any of their findings. MLM is fully functional with its primary coolant loop running, so there's no immediate concerns or issues, though, of course, they'd like to uncover the cause of that particular leak.
Gotcha. Quick follow-up, if that's okay. I know Joel mentioned after the Soyuz, NASA did some work to follow up on that investigation and check out the results that Roscosmos came up with. Is there something similar planned for this investigation? Will NASA, go over the results of their findings?
We certainly will look at it. I will tell you, since the Soyuz is a crewed vehicle and that has more, immediate risk and implications, since it's also free flying with the crew, we had a very concerted effort to look at that. So I'd say we were looking in parallel to their investigation in addition to just reviewing what they did after. This one we'll wait and see what they find, and then we'll take a look after it. So we'll certainly look at it, but we'll let them see what they come up with first through their internal investigation.
Thank you, Dana. Will Robinson-Smith, Spaceflight Now, you're next.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking our questions. One for Benji Reed and one for Dana, if I might. Benji, this is the second flight for this particular cargo Dragon. Can you talk about where things stand with the overall Dragon fleet as it pertains to the cargo versions of the Dragon? And question for Dana, in your description of upcoming station activities, perhaps I missed it, and forgive me if I did. I don't believe I heard an update on NG-20 with Northrop Grumman. Can you update us on when that's expected to fly and dock to station? Thanks.
I'll jump in first with the state of the Dragon fleet. And yeah, that is I believe this is the second flight of this Dragon. Right now we've got 4 Crew Dragons and we've got 3 Cargo Dragons. We actually have a 5th Crew Dragon coming up online here next year. So that'll give us, again, 5 crew and 3 cargo Dragons. Of note, just this year alone, we've had 5 Dragon launches and 6 Dragon returns, which is pretty exciting.
Okay, let's see. For NG-20, you're right, I didn't mention it. I talked about NG-19 departure. We are still working with NG. They're still evaluating launch dates, and we're still looking through the overall manifest to set the actual launch date.
Thank you. And Jim Siegel, NASATech.net.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking my call. I have a question for Meghan. I'm interested in listing for my readers a more complete list of the science investigations that are on this flight, particularly those related to medical or food kinds of issues. And I've usually been able to find those on somewhere on the NASA website, and I can't find them now. And I wondered if you could suggest some place where I could find that kind of information. Thank you.
Sure, we can check and make sure our websites are up to date for you. I would highly encourage you to look at our Space Station Research Explorer app and the ISS Research and Technology NASA homepage from there.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Those are great resources, and hopefully they're helpful for you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And next question will be Marcia Smith from spacepolicyonline.com. Go ahead, Marcia.
Thanks so much. My question is for Benji. Benji, you said that there were tons of valves. Could you put a number on that? I mean, it doesn't have to be precise, but just sort of generally, how many is tons of valves on Dragon? And you mentioned that after you replaced the thruster, there was still some vapor around it. Could you go over again what that was about and how you resolved it?
Sure, absolutely. And you're right. That's probably a pretty bad euphemism to say tons of valves. I don't actually know the total valve count on Dragon, although I know it's quite a few. But I can tell you a little bit more about that vapor. So, like I said, as we were proceeding into our propellant load, we had detected a leak in a valve, and that valve we decided we needed to do a full replace on. So we replaced that valve. After that, we detected a very, very low level reading of vapor still present in the area. And we assessed that. First of all, it was extremely low trace levels. And as we proceeded through the prop load, we got to our full flight pressure in the system. It went down drastically even from the trace amount it already was. And so that gave us confidence that the system was behaving correctly and within the bounds of allowed readings. And so that's why we proceeded to today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was our last question. Thanks again to the panelists today for taking time out of their schedules to talk about this mission. Our NASA TV coverage of the launch begins tomorrow at 8 p.m. That's Eastern Time, with a liftoff scheduled for 8:28 p.m. Stay tuned to nasa.gov for your launch updates, and have a good rest of your evening. Thank you, everyone.
This will conclude today's conference. All parties may disconnect at this time.